Good day and welcome to Your Right on Trust TV, the program dedicated to educating and empowering you with legal knowledge. I'm Hawa Usman, your host, and today we'll be discussing a topic that is crucial for every entrepreneur and business owner in Nigeria. Many people start businesses without realizing that under the Nigerian law, specifically under the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA, it is illegal to operate a business without proper registration. Business registration is not just a legal requirement. It is also a critical step toward building credibility, assessing funding, and protecting your brand. To help us break this down, I am joined by Barrister Chisom Nwosu, a corporate lawyer and a business consultant with years of experience advising startups and SMEs. But before diving into the intricacies of business registration, we took to the streets to gather opinions from Nigerians about their experiences and thoughts on registering a business. Here's what they have to share.
It is not illegal something. It is a good citizen. You make me a good citizen, which I did the correct thing. If government would do that, but for me like this, I'll just carry my money like that and go and register. I can't register it like as now that I sit down. I'm using POS, but I do not register it because there is not any income. If I carry that money and register, it is a loss to me. There are many business, small business that they do not know anything about CS because they do not introduce it. Most of us, it is on social media, and it's not everybody that have big phone that is using to watch all those things on social media.
Yeah, it's very important. So government need to know everything. Any business that a person can do, like all these small business, they need to know something about it because it's their responsibility. Because it's our country, we both grow the country together. So they need to know something about us. And they need to enlighten us to know the benefits.
Encouraging mutane na su register da.
It is crucial for business owners to register their businesses with the Corporate Affairs Commission (CAC) and consistently pay their taxes. This enables the government to maintain accurate record of active businesses, ensuring transparency and accountability in the economy. Operating an unregistered business in Nigeria is not only non-compliant but also counterproductive. Without proper registration, the government cannot recognize your business.
It's very important to register businesses, no matter the scale, whether it's small, whether it's medium, whether it's big. It provides several avenues, access to finance and funding, provided by so many finance houses and banks. If you need to expand, you need capital to inject into your businesses. If you do not have a proper registration with the Corporate Affairs Commission, it becomes very difficult to be able to access those fundings. Okay, so basically it's illegal to run a business that you have not registered. And so there are taxes, for instance, that you will have to pay that may not be tracked, right? There are certain payments you may have to do with government that because it is not registered, it may become very difficult to track all of that. And what that means is that if it is discovered, one may be penalized.
Welcome, Barrister Chisom Nwosu.
Thank you very much, ma.
Yeah, so I like to start from the basics.
Okay.
So why is it necessary for people to register their businesses in Nigeria?
It's a mix of practicality and legal consciousness. So the law is clear in CAMA, that's the Companies and Allied Matters Act, that deals with registration of businesses and everything else to do with businesses, how they are run and all of that. It's clear that when you want to have any kind of business in Nigeria, it's absolutely necessary, it's mandatory that you have to register that business. In fact, there's only one exception, and that's if you're using your own name for your business. Like my name now is Chisom Nwosu. If I just call my business Chisom Nwosu or Nwosu C, with nothing else attached to it, I can run my business like that. But if there's even an addition of one word or even two words, like I put Chisomusu and Sons, I must register that business, and that's provided by the Companies and Allied Matters Act under Section 863. If I do not register that business, I become liable to penalties, and legal litigation can be carried out against me, and other penalties can also come against me. In fact, it's so bad that if you are found to be running a business without registering it, under 863 of the CAMA 2020, you will be liable to pay a fine, and you can even be imprisoned for up to 2 years. So it's absolutely necessary that you register your business to avoid all those negative implications.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring you back to registration of businesses.
Okay.
But before we delve into that, I would like you to tell me what are the laws in Nigeria that guide the registration of businesses.
Okay, the primary law that deals with business registration, as I've said, is the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. It was recently enacted to replace the Companies and Allied Matters Act of 1990. So basically what that law does is that it tells you if you want to trade, if you want to start any business of any type, these are the structures you can use, and these are the ways you can incorporate or register your business and decide on this on how to do the business so that it works for you and it works for anyone else you're interacting with. So apart from the Companies and Allied Matters Act, there are also a few other regulatory bodies that usually deal with businesses and which you normally as a business have to be registered with. An example is the NIPC, that's the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. This body deals with it's usually monitors foreign investment. So once you have a foreign shareholder, a foreign director, or any other foreigner that's participating in your business in any way, you are required to register with the NIPC. And apart from that, it also ensures that once you're registered with them, you can now bring in foreign capital into your business. So that way you're able to boost your business, to grow it through that. Then there's also the Federal Ministry of Interior. Once you have foreign participation, or a foreigner wants to wholly own a business 100%, they have to get a business permit from the Ministry of Interior in order to have their business set up in Nigeria. There's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, that's the FIRS. What they deal with is all tax regulations at the federal level. And what this means is that in order for you to be able to pay tax and carry out your legal obligations in that aspect, you have to first register a business, and it's now your business that's charged for different types of tax, whether it's income tax or personal income tax if you're registered as a business name, all of that. So all of this requires that you first register a business. But as I said, the primary legislation is the Companies and Allied Matters Act.
How about the Securities and Exchange Commission? Does it have a role to play in regulating businesses?
Yes, of course it does. So what the Securities and Exchange Commission deals with is businesses that are listed. And for a business to be listed, it has to have a shareholding structure. So this deals with both public limited companies, which have shares, as well as private limited companies. When your business grows and you feel like it has gotten to the level where you want people to inject funds into it, so you open it up to investors, that is when you're required to list your business or to register your business with the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to do that, you first have to have that primary business structure, which is a company that's registered with the CAC. It's a fundamental requirement.
Yes. Okay, you've talked about businesses, and some people will be wondering, okay, do you mean business as a company, or what is it exactly that you mean by business?
So when I say business, I mean any form of trade. You can be selling pepper, but you're selling it on a massive scale. You can be selling goods in a store, and you have something that people know you by, so they know you as Obuna and Company or anything like that. It does not matter. Even if you're doing a professional trade, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you have a clinic or facility where, or a laboratory, for instance, where they just run tests, or you have a hospital or a clinic. Whatever it is that you're doing, you have a school, any type of thing that generates income is considered as a business under the Companies and Allied Matters Act. And even things that don't generate income but usually bring in funds, such as grants, such as you write proposals, and then all these what are they called again, non-governmental organizations. Yes, even those involved are considered as structures under the purview of the Companies and Allied Matters Act. They all come under the Allied Matters aspect of the Act. So NGOs, companies that are limited by guarantee, that are not expected to bring up a profit, but still run on funds that are either injected in by members or by grants. They are all considered under businesses of different types. That's why I said that structure matters depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. So any trade of any kind falls under business, even no matter how small or big it is. It becomes a business.
For petty traders, for instance,
yes,
they will be wondering, okay, they are also into business, but
yes,
are they also required to register? When you go to the market, you see people selling things on the tray, people
yes,
on the table.
yes.
Are they also required? Is that a business for the purpose of business registration under the
Yes, yes, it is. So as I said before, unless you're trading specifically under your name and nothing else, just Chisom Wosu, and that's your trade name, you are required to register your business. And there are so many reasons for this. Apart from the fact that you get a legal entity that will help you deal with other people and builds trust in your customers and partners, there's also the fact that if you don't register, it limits a lot of things for you. So there are a lot of sectors that you might not be able to enter into if you do not register a business. Yes, given they are quite big sectors, I'm thinking of banking, telecommunications, oil and gas and all of that. But regardless, even if you're a small business owner, your access to finance, your ability to build a brand for yourself.
Yes, I was coming to that.
Okay, and all of that, to have a trademark, have something that people know you by, to be able to monetize your goodwill, for instance, that I've been doing this business for 20 years, so I am like known in this business. You can only do that when there's a legal entity backing you up, because if you just say I've been doing this business as for instance, I've been having a wine press, let's give that as an example, for 20 years, and you suddenly die, your business has no ability to go on. But if you have something backing you up, people will believe in that brand. So it's no longer you as a person that they believe in, but something bigger than
your
you.
Business, which is your business.
Exactly. So it can have that succession possibility only if you register it.
Yeah. So what risk do people face?
Yes.
What kind of risk are they likely to face if they don't register their businesses?
Oh, there are so many. Like I said, under 863 of the Act of the CAMA, that's Companies and Allied Matters Act, if you don't register, you can face legal penalties. You face having to pay a fine each day that you're unregistered, as well as the possibility of jail time. So for every day
that you carry out that business,
without registering it, you will have to pay a fine.
A fine.
Yes, and that's once you've been caught, they will backdate it as long as in to find out how long you've been running the business for, and then they will charge you a fine according to the number of days. So if you've been running for years, you can imagine the amount of.
So if you've been running for 360. 5 days,
yes,
for 10 years, it will be counted.
Exactly.
And
A
so
daily
every day
fine.
of that 300 and
Exactly.
a daily fine.
Exactly. So a daily fine will be charged according to how long you've been running the business. And then there's also the possibility of imprisonment if you've been found guilty of running a business without registration, and it can be up to 2 years. Now, as a business person, we all know that time is money. So if you're taking away from your business for 2 years, you can imagine the amount of damage that will do to your business. Apart from that, as I said, access to funding. You cannot access funding from any bank, any cooperative, any legal financial entity without showing them that you've been properly registered as a business. Why? Because they need to have something to hold. They need to have something they can trust that this thing will provide us with either collateral or a place to go to get back our money. And they can't just trust in an individual or in a group of individuals. You can easily move at any time if you feel like you have gotten money and you can't pay back. You just disappear if you're an individual. But a business usually has a place it trades from. It has to have that registered address. It has to have structures in place that won't be so easy to move. So it's easier to catch a business than to catch an individual. Then there's also the point that when foreigners especially are dealing with you, when it comes to grants and other incentives that you can get from outside, no one is going to want to invest in something they can't do due diligence on. And you can't really do due diligence on an individual because they can always get a few people to say good words about them. So they need documents, they need something they can hold, as in documents that show them this is the true state of things for this business, this entity. And that's only possible for a business. There's also the fact that if you're not registered as a business, you can't bid for government contracts. You can't have access to, you can't even sue or be sued or enforce your rights as a business, like under contractual law, without being a duly registered business.
Duly registered
exactly.
business.
You have no right to sue or be sued, so it affects you negatively.
As an individual.
Exactly. And it might have been your business that did everything, and if it's not registered, it can't enforce its rights.
It is not a legal entity recognized by law.
Exactly. You lose out in a lot of ways if you're not duly registered as a business.
Yes. So I know most people want to know, what are the different kind of business registrations as provided under the CAMA?
Okay. So under CAMA, it gives you a bunch of alternatives. You have private companies, you have public companies, especially if you want to scale. Public companies makes it easier to scale because you're opening up your business to the entire public to invest in and to have a piece of that pie that you feel is worthwhile and that you want to share with everyone. Then you have incorporated trustees, you have partnerships. There's the general partnerships, limited liability partnerships, and then you have the business name, which is more common and which is like everyone's friend, because no matter how small you are, you can register yourself as a business name and do business using that form and structure.
Yeah, recently I remembered people operating point of POS, point of sale machines.
So they were all advised,
required to register their businesses. So in that kind of circumstance, what kind of business will they be registering? Is it
more
a company?
than likely they'll be going for a business name, because that's, as I said, it has the least requirements in terms of documentation. It has the least requirements in terms of corporate governance. You don't have to have board meetings, you don't have to appoint a secretary, have directors and shareholders and all of that. So it just makes it so much easier to run, because most of the time points of sale businesses, other business names are usually one-man businesses, so they're often called sole proprietorship, and sometimes they can be partnerships as well. It all depends on who is coming together and what they need. Just another little secret, if you are registering a business name, it actually doesn't take up to 20,000 to do that. So it's now for you to know how to bargain with your legal practitioner so that they do not overcharge you or charge you excessive fees.
There is no overcharging.
There's no overcharging. Everyone charges according to their understanding and their valuing of their own time and experience. So it's just, you have to have an idea of what to
Basically,
expect.
it's not expensive to register a business.
It's not expensive at all.
Okay, just hold your thought there.
Yes.
We'll be going on a break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
You're still watching Your Rights on Trust TV. The discussion continues when we come back after this break. Welcome back. All right, Barrister Chisom, you've told us about business registration, and you've told us about how businesses can register small. So if businesses register small and they intend to go big,
yes,
can they transition from being a business name to a company?
Absolutely. So if you're a business name and you want to re-register, as we call it, as a limited liability company, all you have to do is make an application. So it's like starting the process again. You start by doing a name availability search, but this time you indicate clearly that what you're trying to do is re-register a business name as a limited liability company. Once you indicate that, the Companies and Allied Matters Act requires that you get a consent letter from the Registrar General. And how this is done recently, as in right now, in practice, is that they will require you to fill in the details of the directors, the shareholders, all the details of the company that you would normally have to fill in once you're doing a new incorporation of a company. You put in all those details, where the company will have its registered address, all of that, and then you apply for a reservation code. Once the consent is given by the Registrar General, you will receive the reservation code, and then you will now be able to re-register that business name as an limited liability company, and there will be no problem. All you have to do is make the necessary payments as usual and upload all your documents. That's the signatures of the directors and shareholders. You have to upload their ID, valid ID cards, their passport pictures, and then if it's a specialty company, for instance, if you're having a practice as, let's say, a medical doctor or a pharmacist, you have to upload the licenses that show that they are actually licensed to practice. So those are the things that you require.
So if I have a situation where myself and a friend want to do a company registration,
Yes.
what kind of structure will you advise, and then will there be anything that will be necessary for us to do as partners to register either a company or a business name or a partnership? I remembered you mentioned partnership earlier.
Yes. So if you want to do business with a friend, as much as you trust and love and appreciate your friend, anything can happen at any time. So the first thing you should consider would be how much liability you're willing to take on. So you either register as a partnership, which will make you both jointly and severally liable. That means you can either, and if there's ever any problem and there's any debt to settle, the people that are doing business with you will either come after you if they can't find your friend, they come after you alone, or come after you both together. That's the meaning of jointly and severally liable. So both of you can be held for the entire sum, or both of you can be held together for just as in to pay the sum together or to pay the sum as one person. So you either choose a partnership with your friend, or you can play it safe, do more in terms of compliance requirements, and just register a company, which limits your liability and like gives you more room to grow, especially if it's a company that deals with shares. So this will allow you bring in other people as investors and all of that. But before you go into this business with your friend, there are a few things you have to consider. You have to think of your responsibilities, what each of you is bringing in terms of technical know-how, capital, exactly, capital, or if any other thing that is needed for the business to happen well. Someone can just be bringing in their reputation. That's all they need to offer, and then the business will go up and all of that. But apart from that, you also have to think of profit sharing ratio. Think of how to make decisions, how decisions will be made, who's going to be in charge of management of the company. Sometimes a person wants to just be a silent partner and they will bring capital, but everything running and daily management of the business relies on the other partner or partners. So you have to talk about how decisions will be made, if there are disputes, how you resolve them, the exit plan, that's if you no longer want to be a partner, what happens, and how it will be documented so that no one who is coming after the partnership will now come after you after you've left that partnership. So you have to think of all these requirements, and then when you are done and you guys have made all your decisions, make sure it is in writing. As I said, your friends today doesn't necessarily mean you'll be friends tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you do not want to take that risk of things going sour and then it's affecting the business that you've both built together. So you make the efforts to ensure that everything is in writing and all the terms are clear so that everyone can abide.
Okay. One last question from me, very importantly, because for a lot of businesses, I know you've talked about paying tax, but annual returns is something they must do.
Yes.
And for businesses, they will be wondering, how often are these annual returns required to be paid?
So the rule for annual returns, you see it in section 822 for business names, 822 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 for business names, and you also see it in section 417 for companies. There are other sections for incorporated trustees and the rest, but those ones are not the core of our discussion right now. So for companies and business names, the rule is that you pay 18 months after the business starts. So for a business name, 18 months after registration, and then every year thereafter, you have to pay the annual returns. For a company, the rule actually states 42 days after the annual general meeting. But the thing is that you must hold the annual general meeting at least 18 months, no later than 18 months after the company starts its operations. So once you start paying, the point of annual returns generally is that the CAC, their job is to regulate companies and all businesses. So they need to know that companies are actually in operation. They have a list of companies and business names. So in order to keep that list updated and to know which businesses and companies are actually functioning, they make that payment of annual returns compulsory.
Is it okay?
Is once every year. You pay once every year. And the problem is, if you do not pay it, you face a couple of bad consequences.
Thank you very much, Chisom. It's been a pleasure and wonderful having you.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of You're Right. We had an enlightening conversation with Barrister Chisom Wosu, who emphasized the critical role of business registration in Nigeria and shared invaluable insights for both aspiring and existing entrepreneurs. To our viewers, whether you are just starting your entrepreneurial journey or you have been in business for a while, remember that registration of your business is more than just a legal requirement. It is a crucial step towards securing your future and fostering your growth.